want to talk about the Paul brothers, Jake Paul and Logan Paul. This has been a big buzz throughout the fighting world. Jake Paul and Logan Paul, if you don't know who they are, they're these YouTubers, famous YouTube stars. They're known. They're heels as well. They're like in the fighting world right now. They're like the top heels in all of combat sports because they're not really like professional fighters. And but they're in it. They're in it. So for instance, okay, we'll start here. We'll start with Jake Paul. Jake Paul, resident bad guy. He's done 3 fights. He's done them with with Triller, and Triller's a fucking shit show. It's a circus, but it's just it's I don't know. It's just really tacky to me. It ain't for me. So Jake Paul, he fought this one dude first. I forgot who he was. Beat him, and then he beat a former NBA player, Nate Robinson. Knocked him out. So then they're like, okay, well you beat this NBA player who's a tough dude who can scrap. But how about you go up against a real fighter? So Ben Askren, former UFC fighter, he comes in. He's retired too. He decides. Well, he challenges Jake Paul, and then they have this whole fight. The whole MMA community was rooting for Ben Askren. Everyone's thinking, okay, this dude, Ben Askren, come on, MMA fighter, he's going to take out this kid. He's going to take this kid out. And Jake Paul's like, what, he's 23, 24, really young dude. Built very well too. He's, Jake Paul is no slouch. So everyone, it looked like, okay, Ben Askren just looks really relaxed and comfortable, and he looks like he's ready to win the fight. So they, when they're promoting the fight, doing the whole weigh-ins or whatever, and he, talking shit to each other, the weigh-ins came in, and Ben Askren takes off his shirt, and no one realized it until then how out of shape this dude was and how not serious he was taking the fight. I think he just knew he was going to make $1 million either way, because that was what the loser's purse I think was arranged to make. So everyone's like, oh geez, oh, I don't know, we don't know, I don't know. I still had hope, but then the fight happens, and Jake Paul knocks out Ben Askren first round. So, and everyone's like, well, all right. So Jake Paul, and not to take anything away from Jake Paul, he may be an asshole, but he can fight a bit. He's got those qualities, but he even said himself he wished that the fight went on a little bit longer so that he could have shown the world what he's made of. I'm curious to see. I'd love to see what this dude is made of. But it's quite an interesting story, because now the more that this dude wins, the more you want to see him lose. The more you can't wait to see him lose. You wonder who he's going to go up against next. And I think, it's got my curiosity. So now Jake Paul, his ego is through the goddamn roof right now. He is just gloating up a storm, and rightfully so. Hey man, dude's getting his money. He's getting his payday. Being a true heel. And look, I love a good heel. I love a good heel. But I love a heel that can actually make you hate them. Like, you just be like, oh, this dude is such a prick. But then you're just like, oh, I gotta watch him though. got to do it. You're gritting your teeth over it. So, and he's hustling with it too. He's doing all sorts of shenanigans. I'm gonna get to this Logan Paul thing in a second because he had an involvement, but Daniel Cormier, right after because he went on Instagram and talked about Ben Askren. He was watching the Ben Askren fight, and he's talking about it. And then Jake Paul decides to talk some shit to him, I think over the internet or whatever, and then on Twitter or something, whatever. And then so then Jake Paul goes to that UFC event in Jacksonville, and he's sitting behind Daniel Cormier. And Daniel Cormier, one of the most dominant, decorated fighters in MMA history, and all around seems like a great dude too. But he doesn't fuck around. So then Jake Paul is just, I guess Daniel Cormier, I guess what happened when he was commentating, because he's a commentator for UFC now, and he looks behind him, he sees Jake Paul. Jake Paul's just giving him some shit, just throwing some antics, and so Daniel Cormier literally during a fight that he had to commentate, he gets out of the commentator's booth and walks up to Jake Paul, and starts talking to him. And he's like, I don't play these fucking games. If if you want to fucking fight, and just so gets up in his face. And oh man, I wish it was on camera, but UFC is not going to do that. ESPN's not going to do that. They don't want that kind of smoke going on or whatever, which is understandable. And so that enticed the crowd to end up saying fuck Jake Paul, and you heard it during the pay-per-view on TV, and then because at first Joe Rogan was saying, he's like, what's the crowd chanting, and then Daniel Cormier comes back and he goes, they're chanting F Jake Paul, and he goes, I don't play those games, Joe. And so it'd be cool to see Daniel Cormier fight Jake Paul and knock his ass out, but that ain't gonna happen. Daniel Cormier doesn't need to do that. He doesn't have to. But that's what an entertaining thing. Jake Paul does put on quite a show, I'll say that. Spectacle nonetheless. So anyway, his brother Logan Paul has a fight scheduled with Floyd Mayweather, and that's going to be an interesting one. That one intrigues me a hell of a lot. Because Floyd Mayweather, this dude is supposed to be the biggest heel in all of fighting, even though he's retired and just does those prize fights now just for a quick cash grab. And that's what this is with Logan Paul. I don't know. I don't really know anything about Logan Paul's fighting other than that I know that he does it. And so they had a whole little press conference thing, I think yesterday or whatever this week, and it was in Miami where the Dolphins play, and so they're talking shit, doing all that, whatever, and but then there was an incident that happened after the fight, or not the fight, I mean the press conference, and Jake Paul gets up in Floyd Mayweather's face, and they start spitting words at each other. And I think Jake Paul was challenging Floyd, or Floyd was challenging Jake, and they were like, let's do it, come on, let's do it. I know that Jake Paul wants to fight Floyd, which I want to see that fight. I want to see that fight more than Logan Paul. Floyd Mayweather, as you may know, he retired at 50-0, and never lost a fight. And say what you want about that dude as well, he is a very, very, very skilled fighter, one of the all-time greats in boxing. And but what happened was that Floyd Mayweather he was wearing a hat, and so then they're going chirp, 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 fuck you, blah blah blah, blah whatever, and then but then Jake Paul does the ultimate childish thing. Now, Jake Paul's nickname is he calls himself the problem child, and this is exactly why. He just goes, "Gotcha hat," and yanks the hat off Floyd's head and starts running away. You can't make this up. He just went off with the hat, and it just absolutely ludicrous. It is probably the most Jake Paul thing ever, and so that upset Floyd. That upset Floyd. This dude, I don't think I've ever seen Floyd Mayweather be that pissed before. Super pissed. He's all like, I'm gonna fucking kill you, motherfucker. Like that angry, just screaming, just livid. I mean, it was just a power move of disrespect. So what I think is going to happen is Floyd's going to take that out on Logan. Logan's going to lose. And it seems like Jake might be the better fighter too between the brothers. And I hope that Floyd whoops Logan's ass and then takes a fight against Jake, and hopefully Floyd's the one that takes out Jake. But the thing is, does Jake take the fight? I don't know. I don't know if he does. He's talking shit. He's doing all these things. He's ruffling feathers. Does Jake Paul decide to take the fight right after the Logan fight? I don't know. Probably not. I think he wants to ride this wave out for a little while. Probably maybe get one more fight or two in. He needs to fight a boxer though. That's what I think. And hey, and maybe Floyd Mayweather's the one, and maybe Floyd Mayweather ends up being the hero of all this, which would be very ironic because Floyd Mayweather is, like I said, he's a heel, so it would be a heel versus heel boxing match.